Hey, what's up guys, it's Bakes and thank you for joining me for day number 19 of my 31 Days of Horror. Today's movie is one that I haven't rewatched since I saw it for the first time at the drive-ins actually, and I was a little bit underwhelmed by this one. I didn't think it was great, and I remember at the time of it coming out, people were kind of mixed on it, but now it sort of seems to be that a lot of people kind of agree with me. They're not the biggest fan of this movie, but it has been a little while, so I was like, you know what, might as well check it out, see if my opinion on it has changed. So today's movie is from 2021 and it is The Conjuring 3, The Devil Made Me Do It. And now that I've reviewed this movie, or I'm about to, I've done the complete Conjuring trilogy. Not the Conjuring universe, but I've done reviews of the first two movies, so if you want to know my thoughts of them, they'll be up on my channel as well. But either way, before we get into my thoughts of The Conjuring 3 upon rewatch, let's quickly go into the plot for this one. So the movie opens with the Warrens doing this exorcism on this little boy who is obviously possessed. And while they're doing the exorcism, the little boy's sister's boyfriend named Arnie, he's trying to get the demon out of his girlfriend's little brother. And he just sort of says, take me instead. You're a coward for, possessing this little boy. Take me instead. So that's what the demon does. It moves from the little boy into Arnie. Some time passes, and then Arnie eventually gets possessed and he ends up murdering somebody. So obviously he's taken in by police, and his excuse in court is the devil made me do it. So now the Warrens have to set out for proof that Arnie was possessed, and that's why he murdered this person. And there's obviously spooky shit going on while this is all happening. So that's pretty much the plot for this movie. So let's get into my thoughts of 2021's The Conjuring 3, The Devil Made Me Do It. So as I said just before in my intro, the first time I saw this movie, I wasn't overly impressed by it. By all means, I didn't think it was unwatchable or anything. I just thought it was very okay, probably like a 5 out of 10, which in comparison to the first two movies is quite a step down, because the first two Conjuring movies are really strong. But when I saw this movie for the first time, I just thought it was very okay, very average. And I remember at the time a lot of people were kind of split on it, but over time I'm sort of hearing more people go against this movie, sort of come to the terms, yeah, it's not the greatest. But that kind of made me more interested to check it out. Do opinions change over time? Is it as bad as what people are starting to come around and say it is? But I'm happy to relay on, I enjoyed this movie a lot more this time. By all means, it's still not a great movie, and I still stand by that it is a big step down from the first two movies, but it's not quite as poor as I remember it being. So, first of all, it does feel very different to the first two Conjuring movies. First of all, you can tell that James Wan is just not directing this movie. This time it's directed by Michael Chavez. I think I'm pronouncing that right. And I don't mean to hate on this director or anything, but James Wan, he just knows how to direct paranormal, demonic movies and, build a really good story while also having really good scares, and they feel very down to earth, but also very grand. And just the way he does these movies, he knows how to hit the nail on the head. He does them perfect. And as I said, I don't mean to hate on this director, but I just feel like there was a lot of things done in this movie that didn't quite work. First of all, it feels less grounded. It also feels, in a way, more gimmicky. It feels like they had specific scenes or camera shots or something that they wanted to do in this movie, and they just built scenes around it, and it just didn't really work. As I said, it felt gimmicky. It almost felt a little bit try-hard. As I said, I don't mean to hate on this director or anything, but it just didn't feel the same as the first two Conjuring movies, and that's unfortunate because, as I said, the first two are great. The previous Conjuring movies, there are moments where it slows down and it takes its time to build the story and everything, but it still stays entertaining and pretty interesting. In this one, when the moments get slow, it does get really boring at times. You're like, oh my god, let's move on. And that's probably some negatives that I wanted to bring up first of all. As I said, I did enjoy this movie more this time, but I just wanted to get a few more of the negatives out of the way also. So in this third Conjuring movie, we kind of have two storylines going on at the same time. First of all, we have the Warrens who are doing this investigation and trying to find proof that this kid Arnie was possessed while he did these murders. And then on the other hand, we have Arnie's story, who is dealing with being possessed and what he's done, and dealing with his girlfriend's family, and the pressure of dealing with what's happened even though it was out of his control. And I actually do prefer Arnie's story in this one, even though the Warrens sort of storyline takes the main focus for the majority of this movie. And even though the two storylines do relate to each other, they feel very disconnected. It's kind of like at points you're forgetting, oh yeah, these two are the same thing, you know. At the end of the day, they want the same goal, but it feels like we're just watching two different storylines. As I said, it feels very disconnected. And as I said, I kind of prefer Arnie's storyline in this one. And it's not to say that the Warrens in this movie aren't welcome. As usual, they're well acted. Patrick Wilson and Vera Farmiga, they do a great job as Ed and Lorraine Warren. And they do have, you know, enjoyable moments in their story, even though I do prefer Arnie's. But as I said, it just feels disconnected and less interesting. And you can tell that they're trying to still develop the Warrens as characters. You know, you got Ed in this one who is dealing with this, I think he has a heart attack at the start of the movie, something like that. He's dealing with that. Lorraine's having these visions that are really getting to her and pretty much like giving her these nightmares and everything. So they're still trying to develop the Ed and Lorraine characters in this movie, but it just feels a little less interesting than Arnie's story going on the side. So I spoke for a while on the negatives that I had for this movie, and you might be wondering, because I said in my intro that I enjoyed this movie more than I did last time, so where do the positives actually come into play? And I guess we'll start with something I briefly brought up before. I really like Arnie as a character, and I really like his storyline, which is kind of unfortunate because, as I said, the Warrens' storyline definitely overshadows his for the majority of this movie, and we don't really get too much with Arnie. I wish we did get more. But I really like him as a character. As I said, he seems very genuine. You can tell he's just trying to do the right thing. First of all, we don't have any interactions with Arnie's direct family. Everything family-wise has got to do with his girlfriend's family. And you can tell he's just trying to be a nice guy right from the opening where his girlfriend's little brother is having this exorcism. You know, he's just trying to do what he feels is right. And obviously, it's extremely unfortunate what ends up happening to Arnie, but as I said, I found him to be a really likable character. My favourite scene in this whole movie is Arnie's possession, or the scene where he murders the person that he ends up getting charged for. I think that scene is fucking awesome. First of all, the choice of having music play over the top of this whole scene, it's one of those things that you could be seen as gimmicky, like I brought up before. But I feel like it was a risk, and it was a good choice, and it paid off, and it wasn't cheesy at all to me. The song Call Me by Blondie plays over the top, and I feel like it just adds to the insanity which the scene brings. He's having these visions and delusions. It's like being drunk, high, and having a fever all at the same time, with music blaring. You've got this drunk guy in the house who's, fucking around. Arnie's already not feeling the greatest. The scene is just pure insanity, and I feel like it works. You know, the music choices, the colours, the flashes of delusions and visions. I just really fucking love that scene. And I guess another touch that I haven't really brought up, in this movie, it's not your classic possession that we normally see in the Conjuring movies. It's actually a curse. And it is a slight change. It's nothing that, you know, really flips the story on its head, but it was a nice touch to do something slightly different than your typical possession that we normally see. Now, there's another part in this movie that I kind of like. It definitely has its moments. It's the part with Ed and Lorraine in the morgue. Now, the morgue scene in its entirety definitely feels a little bit over the top and less grounded, but as I've already established, this third Conjuring movie just in general is less grounded. But the part that I really like is where Lorraine is doing her connection thing with this dead body in there. You know, she's grabbing its hand and, you know, putting herself onto the other side or whatever she does. And she sort of makes this two-way connection with the person who is doing the curse on Arnie, which is having him possessed. I just really like that scene. First of all, really cool choice with Lorraine's monologue. She's relaying onto Ed, you know, what she's seeing while she's in this vision. And the audio is very deep and bass-like, and I thought that was a really cool touch. Like, when she started speaking, it was like coming out of my sound system, and I was like, whoa, that is actually really fucking cool. And from a storyline point of view, I really like when she's having this vision, how it's two ways. Like, she is able to see what the person doing the curse is doing, and the person doing the curse can see what Lorraine is doing, and they're like sort of having this mind communication in this vision. I thought that was a really cool touch as well. But as I said, that part is really interesting, but the overall morgue scene is a little bit hit and miss. But something I did kind of think back pretty fondly on. One of the weaker parts in this movie is the climax on both parts of the story, the Warren's part and Arnie's part. As I said, I really enjoyed Arnie's part, but the climax there is a little bit kind of cringe, and same with the Warrens. I feel like the Warrens' climax was slightly better. It had cooler moments, but overall, I didn't think the climax to this movie was great. But, if you're really pointing to the lowest part of this movie, the cringiest scene to me is the part where Lorraine is on the cliff's edge and Ed goes to say, I don't know, it was in all the trailers, it was kind of cringy, but yeah, a few scenes that I did like in this movie and a few characters that I like, and yeah, that cliff scene was probably my least favourite part. So as I wrap up my final thoughts on this movie and get to my rating and whatever, as I said, I enjoyed this movie a lot more this time round, and I'm very aware that I still brought up a lot of negatives, and by all means, it's because this movie still isn't perfect. There are a lot of decisions that I feel like maybe okay on paper, just weren't well executed. My first time seeing this movie though, I was really bored and quite underwhelmed. But this time around, I just found it to be a lot more enjoyable. There were definitely more moments that I liked. The first time I saw this movie, my favourite part, hands down, was Arnie's possession scene, and again, that was my favourite part now, but as I said, other little moments thrown in there that were definitely more enjoyable this time around. As I said, a lot of people are starting to go against this movie. By all means, not everyone loved it when it first came out, but I'm starting to hear a lot more people be like, yeah, nah, The Conjuring 3 is major dog shit, and it's definitely not major dog shit, it just is a major step down from the first two movies. For me, I'm going to give this a rating of a 6.5 out of 10. I'm not feeling generous. For a little moment, I was going to be a 7, but as I said, I'm not feeling generous. I feel like there's still work to be made and room to grow on me, so I'm going to give it a 6.5, but definitely more rewatchable than, I thought it was going to be. As I said, I think I originally gave it like a 5, so a whole 1.5 up is a pretty solid effort to grow on me, but that's it for my review for day number 19. Let me know your thoughts on The Conjuring 3, The Devil Made Me Do It. As I said, I've done reviews of the first two Conjuring movies on my channel as well, so if you want to hear my thoughts on those two movies, they're up on my channel, as I said. But I'll see you tomorrow for day number 20, guys. Thank you for joining me. Peace.